The description for this panel is the pandemic has put extra focus on year-round outdoor recreation in Iowa. What is the strategy behind local and visitor appeal, and how are we utilizing our natural assets and embracing the outdoors? And my name is Gage Muskimen. I'm typically the Marion and Linn County reporter for the Cedar Rapids Gazette, but I'll be your moderator on this hour. We have 5 panelists coming from different backgrounds within recreation here today. Hopefully we'll have 5 once we get Mary connected, but Mary Joy Liu, CEO and owner of Rail Explorers USA, Matt Phippen, the RAGBRAI director, Maggie McClellan, director of Icon Water Trails, Greg Edwards, president and CEO of Catch Des Moines, and Joe Horaney, comms director for Linn County Solid Waste Agency. So first of all, thank you everyone for taking time out of your Friday morning here to join us and take part in the Iowa Ideas Conference. My first question for all of you, just kind of going around the table, is to introduce yourselves a little bit more, what your role is, what your responsibilities are, and essentially what your experience is in the outdoor recreation world in Iowa. And Matt, I'm going clockwise here on my Zoom screen. So Matt, I'll have you go first.
Yeah, so Matt Phippen, director of RAGBRAI. I started this job in January 10th of this year. I left a 23-year career at a sporting goods retailer in Iowa, Shields. I'm sure you're familiar with that. Love the company. Had no thoughts of ever leaving and retiring. I wanted to retire with Shields, and this opportunity came along. So my job now is to get 30,000 plus people across the state of Iowa in July on bicycles. So we just wrapped up our fall ride last weekend. We had a pretty awesome year for 49 in July of this year, and now we're in full game on planning mode for year 50, which it's kind of scary because everybody and their brothers coming to Iowa next year to ride their bikes. So we're gonna get them across the state again.
Absolutely. Maggie, you're next on my clockwise rotation here.
Perfect. So Maggie McClellan's, I'm the director for Iowa Confluence Water Trails, or ICON for short. I have been with the project for about 2.5, almost 3 years. I initially joined the team January of 2020 as the project manager. I came from a background of program and project management, economic development, and so joined the team then, had about 6 weeks in office, and then everything shut down. But fortunately, we stayed busy throughout the pandemic, which was great. Back in July of 2021, in conjunction with a rebrand as well as a reorg into our own 501c3, moved over into the director role for the organization. And as the only full-time staffer working on the project, I kind of oversee all sorts of things between engineering and design for the project, marketing, organizational administration and operations, maintenance and operations for the regional side of things. So kind of wear a lot of hats in this role.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Greg, you are next on my screen.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Greg Edwards. I'm the CEO of Catch Des Moines, which is the Regional Convention and Visitors Bureau here in the Des Moines Metro. Been here in my job for 22 short years. I think they're ready to get rid of me at any time, so this could be my last performance. Actually, had a lot of success in Des Moines. Our main focus is primarily to increase visitors to our region, and visitors being in conventions, meetings, sporting events, obviously outdoor recreation and recreation in general, very, very important to us, and has been a huge market for us, growing tremendously over the past really 10, 15 years.
Definitely. Thank you for that. And Joe, you're next.
Thanks, Gage. I'm Joe Horaney, the communications director for the Cedar Rapids Linn County Solid Waste Agency. Been with the agency for 12 years. I do all of our marketing, outreach, and community engagement. And Mount Trashmore has been a big part of that since I started with the agency. Back then, it was still a landfill taking in flood debris. And I've been through the transition of turning it into a recreation destination, and just seeing it grow now and making sure people know what's going on down there and what we're looking forward to in the future.
Definitely. Well, thank you for that. And hopefully we get Mary on here, and once she's on here, we can take a step back and give her introduction as well on her initiative there. But I wanted to move forward with you guys and just kind of ask, the big theme of our topic here being outdoor recreation. Iowa doesn't have oceans or mountains, but obviously we have some great outdoor amenities that I think have been more appreciated in recent years than perhaps before, given, of course, the pandemic and people wanting to be outside after being cooped up and quarantined toward the beginning of that. Just hoping each of you could kind of speak on this and the opportunities on the big picture level to take advantage of Iowa's natural resources and landscapes, and how each of your projects or initiatives or organizations feeds into that kind of thought process as well before I get into the specifics. Anyone can go first. Otherwise, I can cold call someone in the classroom if no one knows where to jump in, but whoever wants to take it away and is comfortable with going first, that would be great.
I'll take it away.
Well, thanks, Greg.
Obviously, as I mentioned in my intro, outdoor recreation and things have been tremendously important, and especially through COVID. COVID, as most of you know, just totally shut down the travel industry, the visitor industry. Our hotels went from running 65, 70% occupancies annually to about 8%. So a huge hit on the economies, and obviously that fell through to restaurants and shops and shopping centers and attractions and on and on and on. So what we really saw during COVID was an upswing. People still wanted to get out. They just didn't want to kiss each other when they were out. And so outdoor recreation became a big thing. And we focused a lot on that in the time period of COVID when everything was still shut down, doing a lot of social media. Obviously, our budgets were totally strapped at that time too, totally cut down, but just did a lot of stuff to get the word out that, hey, we've got a lot of opportunity in our metro area, whether it be our walking, biking trails, all of our different parks and recreation opportunities in the metro area. And I think really, if you look at our metro area and probably a lot of the metro areas around the state, you look at the growth of outdoor recreation opportunities here in Des Moines. We opened 2 years ago the USA's largest skate park, outdoor skate park here in Des Moines. We hosted the first event after COVID was the DO Tour, which was an international event. It was an Olympic trial event here in Des Moines. And that was a huge thing to really raise the people's spirits again, that, oh my gosh, events are coming back. And although it's a real niche market, it really had a huge effect on us. And to this day, you look at the growth of our communities building new soccer complexes, indoor recplexes, on and on and on. So that's my story, and I'll move on.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can go next, if that's all right.
Sure.
So I kind of see things from both sides. I was at Shields during the pandemic, and our store was deemed essential, so we stayed open, and our job was to find out how we can get products to customers because they did not want to come into our stores. So we incorporated a lot of same day delivery, so you could either call in or go online, and we would deliver stuff. Through that time frame, we delivered so many bicycles and ping pong tables and basketball hoops to these families that wanted to stay home and do these activities. But cycling was one of the biggest growth categories that we had, and it was so big that even today bike shops are having a hard time rebounding from that because we just can't get stuff. We saw that, in 2021 on the ride a little bit. A lot of brand new riders that have never experienced RAGBRAI. They bought a bike in 2020. They rode on the bike trails because they could do it by themselves out in the middle of nowhere. They weren't around people for the most part. And then when RAGBRAI came through, they said, now, I'm going to ride my bike on RAGBRAI and do this. So we saw these new riders that have never ridden in bigger groups. The numbers for 2021 were, they were down, a little bit compared to previous years. But this year we definitely saw a major increase because everybody was ready to be back. Those riders that bought bikes in 2020 are now still riding those bikes. But I think that's the cool thing about the cycling industry and Iowa. I mean, there's over 2,000 trail miles in Iowa to ride. So you could ride somewhere and not see a person. There's plenty of roads to ride on if you're into riding on the actual highways. but the gravel, riding has been a major shot in the arm for Iowa. Iowa has amazing gravel, and you can get on a gravel road and ride for miles and not see anything but cornfields and farmers. I mean, it's great to get away. And the crazy thing about it is you're still in Iowa, and it doesn't feel like you get to a top of a hill and you look around and you can see for miles, and it doesn't feel like Iowa. And, there's another gravel road, that you can see the distance that's, definitely easy and rideable.
Definitely. Maggie, what about you?
Yeah, I'll dovetail off of Matt and go from paved trails to water trails. But we've all seen the success of our paved trails here in Central Iowa and as the state as a whole. And so we really want to take that success and put it into our water trails as well. We've got this really great resource that has gone underutilized for so many years, especially the unique kind of environment we have right in the heart of downtown Des Moines with the Des Moines and Raccoon Rivers coming together. We haven't been able to tap into that resource. And so that's what Water Trails is trying to do, is kind of add this additional amenity, similar to the success that we've seen with the regional bike trails. We have this opportunity to provide this amenity to attract and retain talented workforce, which I think is why the business community has come along with it, is that they see that this is an opportunity to attract new talent to the area. But then on Greg's side of things as well, we have an opportunity to bring visitors here to the area. We've been working with a consultant to understand kind of a business plan and what rentals and uses of our water trails will look like. And we have an opportunity to be the second most visited whitewater adventure park in the country behind Bend, Oregon. So a real opportunity to kind of hit not only locals, but visitors as well, and just provide this new amenity to Iowa and really put us on the map as one of the premier destinations for outdoor recreation, whether it be paved trails or whether it be water trails.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Joe, what about you?
And for us, it's really been an effort to embrace what we are. Mount Trashmore is this booming presence over top of all Cedar Rapids, looking over that. And so knowing that, we wanted to make sure that we are working both with like the city and the county. When you're talking about biking trails, we have the biking trail that goes just outside of our facility. And we've really become that jump off point where people are coming through. If they start northern Linn County, they're heading down south, they can get to us, stop in, head to the top of Mount Trashmore, take in that experience, and then jump back on. And we're looking towards the future too, with embracing what everyone is doing with that new light line bridge that will be coming in here the years ahead. And so Mount Trashmore is just going to be, I think, a piece of that bigger, embracing what we have here in Linn County with the natural environment, and then making it a place that's going to grow out into Czech Village, Nubo, and really just kind of be a capstone for that whole area while getting out to be able and enjoy the outdoors.
Absolutely. Thank you all for your answers on that one. And like my last question kind of alluded to, I think we've all talked about so far is this increased outdoor recreation popularity. Of course, this isn't just a thing in Iowa, it's been across the country in the pandemic. However, all the projects, initiatives, organizations that you've been working on and the projects related to that were or have been in the works since before the pandemic, years before the pandemic. So I'm kind of wondering if you could speak to whether or not you were seeing kind of this increase in popularity before COVID-19 happened, and COVID-19 was kind of the boom for that. But I'm wondering if we were already kind of heading toward that anyways. I mean, water trail talk has been around since I was at the Des Moines Register before the pandemic. Mount Trashmore and its recreational trails have existed long before that. RAGBRAI has been very popular for decades, and the Des Moines Skate Park and other projects were probably in the works and before the pandemic as well, even and open before the pandemic. So I'm just kind of wondering if each of you could kind of speak to what you saw in terms of the incoming popularity of this kind of boom caused by the pandemic before the pandemic even happened.
Yeah, I can
see if you can say anything.
Hi, it's Mary Joy again, trying to see if you can hear me.
Hey, Mary, I can hear you.
All right, we'll go with audio for now.
Okay, sorry.
Let's back up before we get into that question to give Mary a chance to catch up. Mary, hopefully you're not too shook by the technical difficulties here, but if you could take a moment to introduce yourself and your role in your organization and what you guys have accomplished in the state so far, that would be great. And then we'll get you caught up to speed on these other questions too.
Look, thank you. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what happened.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so Rail Explorers is my company that we opened in Boone, Iowa this year. And Rail Explorers is an ecotourism company that has steel pedal-powered rail bikes. So we go around the country looking for really beautiful locations with rail and look and create partnerships with whoever owns the rail. In this case, it's the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad, which is very famous in Iowa, and they've just been wonderful partners. So yeah, since the minute we opened, pretty much this year, we've been sold out. So it's been an amazing, amazing response.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And yeah, I had heard that it had been sold out. I know people who have been trying to get signed up, and they're still months out. It's fall right now. Everyone's trying to see the scenes and the fall leaves. So that's super exciting for you guys. Sorry, Maggie, to get back to the question that I think you were about to answer and to give everyone a quick run through in case we forgot what the question was already, including the audience. Just wondering if each of you could kind of speak to the popularity that you were already seeing before the boom, because there had to have been some demand and popularity increases to even be pursuing and thinking about all the projects and initiatives that you guys work on. So Maggie, could you be the first to kind of talk about that specifically with Force Water Trails?
Yeah, absolutely. Gage, and you kind of mentioned this too. I mean, the concept of water trails has been around for a long time. I think one of the initial studies that was done that I've seen was done in the early 2000s related to mitigating the dams in downtown Des Moines and putting in a whitewater adventure park. But things really started to kick off for us back in 2016 when the Des Moines Area MPO adopted the Greater Des Moines Greenways and Water Trails Master Plan. And that really spelled out the opportunities that we have to engage our waterways here in Central Iowa. And so from there, we conducted a feasibility study that identified 86 planned improvements across 150 miles of waterways and really gave us the framework to be able to move forward with, at that time, what was Central Iowa Water Trails, but has evolved into Icon Water Trails. So we were seeing a lot of momentum, starting in 2016, but then when we first started Central Iowa Water Trails in 2019, a lot of momentum of people wanting to see these opportunities. We knew that paddle sports was one of the fastest growing segments of outdoor recreation. And so they were looking for opportunities like this. And as I mentioned, we had this great resource to be able to tap in to and provide these amenities and these opportunities for Central Iowans. So we were already seeing momentum pre-pandemic. And then, of course, when everything shut down, we took the brief pause. But I think we were one of the lucky ones during the pandemic, and that work never slowed down for us because people were having this newfound appreciation for the outdoors because that was their only activity at that time. And so while our fundraising side of things may have taken a pause so people could address, more immediate needs with what was going on, the behind the scenes work of moving forward with project plans for our first downtown adventure park and moving forward with putting some of these projects in place never slowed down. Matt spoke to, his side of things on Shields, and bikes were sold out. We heard kayaks were sold out as well, that people wanted to try these new activities. And so we've been fortunate to see the success of people having this newfound appreciation for the outdoors. And we certainly want to hold on to that and have seen that continued momentum and that success with water trails, which has allowed us to see the success and the progress so quickly related to the project.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Does anyone want to add to that as well and answer that question? I think each one of you probably brings a different perspective to this question as well.
Yeah, I mean, we saw, the numbers after COVID were down a little bit. The COVID was devastating, but in the cycling category, it got more people on bicycles and on trail systems. So when we saw the numbers this year, you could just tell people were ready to be back, and ride their bicycle. I mean, the numbers were just insane. But in 2021, people were kind of just trying to dip their toes into do I, don't I? I mean, we had people that were showing up to a cycling event wearing, full masks and, gloves. And it's like, as a cyclist, how in the heck do you ride with a full mask on? And it was just tough, but they wanted to be back. They wanted to experience it because they didn't want to miss RAGBRAI. And obviously 2022, we had record numbers. The first town out of the gate was Brunson, and there's a picture that is a view of cyclists having to walk their bikes into town because they couldn't ride. It was so jam-packed on the roads. 2022 was definitely them telling us we want to be back riding our bikes on RAGBRAI. So I look forward to 50 and what that looks like.
Definitely. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I'll pipe in a little bit too here. I think there's a couple different factors in our world for outdoor recreation and the popularity and increase of facilities. One is, I think COVID had a huge effect on it. But I think the other factors are, adults have really all across America have said, we got to get healthier and start doing more things, riding bikes, jogging, running, walking, all those sorts of things, ice skating, whatever it may be. But the really big factor here too is youth sports, and kids, and a lot of the people on the call, you have young kids. Everybody knows that your son or daughter are someday going to play in the NBA or the WNBA or the NFL, all of those sorts of things, like I did with my kids who are all short and fat like me. And that never happened. I'm just telling you. But, you look at the growth again in this metro area. I mean, we've got a suburb building a complex with 13 outdoor turf soccer fields, another suburb building huge indoor soccer field space. Of course, we just built opened a year or so ago, the Mid-American Energy Recplex out in West Des Moines, which is a huge facility, 2 indoor ice rinks, indoor field house, 100,000 square feet that you can do soccer, baseball, you name it, wrestling tournaments, volleyball tournaments, on and on and on. Those are indoor, but it's all related to this subject. Youth sports is kicking in big time. Soccer is kicking in. Soccer, I think, is still the #1 fastest growing sport in the world. And that has huge impact as well.
Absolutely. Joe, I think you were sorry.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, we knew there had been interest for years leading up to when we officially opened the trails back in 2018. But what's interesting is that 2020 was kind of a lost year for us. We were scheduled to open late because we were doing a bunch of site improvement work, updating the trails already, building a new welcome center that we call Building 948, which is a reference to Mount Trashmore's elevation. But we ended up only having a 20-day season. So we opened late in July, and then the derecho hit in 2020, and it destroyed our new $1 million building. And it also tore up our trails too. We had a bunch of steps throughout it and bridges that are as you go up Mount Trashmore. Those were all blown off and destroyed. So it was only open for 20 days in 2020. So when we came back in 2021, we knew that there was this built up, everyone wanted to get back out there and use it. So we saw great numbers in 2021. The numbers went up again this year in 2022. And we can actually track that because everyone who comes through checks it in a kiosk so we can see the amount of people coming through. So, we knew it was there initially. They lost it for a year. And when it was able to come back, it just exploded and everybody came out. So that's been a great thing to see.
Absolutely. Mary, what about you?
We also saw a huge increase because we were naturally outdoors, socially distant, and one of the few things that people could travel locally to do. So we saw, we had 4 locations at the time, and in that year we had 135,000 riders amongst those 4 locations. And it was interesting to track the demographics because they were very different to previous years where their, headquarters, where one of our locations where I am now is Newport, Rhode Island. We have one in Las Vegas, one in Cooperstown, New York, one in the Catskills, New York. So people stayed local, which was really great to be able to deal with a real local clientele instead of them coming, from, 6 states away or, from other local states because of the travel concerns. And I think one of the great things about this Rail Explorers and the rail bikes is that we got a lot of people of all ages, and we always do, all ages and all abilities. So because they were going stir crazy, they were able to get out and come and ride with us. And they were bringing their great grandparents, they were bringing their babies, and they were so hungry for it. And they also, like like Matt said, they'd turn up in their masks, and we would all wear masks while they were getting on the rail bikes before a tour. But then we'd say, take your mask off because you could pass out from overexertion, So we had 2 years of great activity, and yeah, this year we're down about 5% across the board, but I think that's natural when other options open up.
Yeah, Mary, I had a follow-up specifically for you, kind of being the newest kind of project initiative here in the Iowa block. And I was kind of wondering, how did that relationship form and the idea come about to starting this up in Iowa as well? I'm kind of wondering, what are the steps that you take to be like, okay, this is a location where we want to implement this cool new thing?
We are very active in going to railroad shows, going to conferences that appeal to either short line rails or tourism railroads. And we actually met Travis Stevenson, the president or the director of the Boone and Scenic Valley Railroad, in 2016 at a conference in Savannah, Georgia. So these things take a lot of time. And at the time, we did research and we knew we had some beautiful track here in Boone, but it had this very big obstacle of a really steep hill down into the Des Moines River. And at that time, we didn't have any solutions for our pedal rail bikes to be able to really give everybody a smooth ride. We knew there'd be some people that couldn't do it. And, we're all about inclusiveness for, all ages, all abilities. So it took us a few years to get back to him. So last year we had just developed a new pedal assist that really works for the rail bikes and makes pedaling up, the almost 2% grade effortless. So we went back last October with our rail bikes, sent 2 across, and took everybody out, and we're like, we can do this. So we started planning and we opened in mid-July.
Right. Now, that's a really cool story. I didn't have that context, so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, but it's a wonderful partnership because it's a non-for-profit partnered with a for-profit. So they just couldn't believe how quickly things were happening. They're like, whoa, what? How? And
absolutely.
Yeah, it was
absolutely. Great. One thing you all have kind of hinted about talking about your various projects, and one thing I think is a big part of creating community in general and supporting community infrastructure. I had a community infrastructure panel yesterday, and we were talking about local recreational opportunities and how that's a really important part of infrastructure. I was hoping each of you could kind of speak to the communities that have been built around each of your projects, initiatives, recreational outlets. And maybe Matt, maybe you could take this first. Obviously, the RAGBRAI community has been a long and loyal community that has existed for decades. But I think each of you can kind of speak to what the role of community plays in each of your initiatives or organizations.
Sure. Yeah. Without community, RAGBRAI doesn't exist. You need the big dots on the map to overnight in, and you need the small dots to pass through. And the towns that decide they want to be on the route, it's a major lift for them. This is not their full-time job, and for the months leading up to RAGBRAI, it's a full-time job for them because they want to do what's best for their community. And they're nervous because they're worried that 30,000 people are going to come, and they want to showcase their community. But the towns that pull together and truly show up for RAGBRAI and for Iowa, the ones that are truly successful. The towns that think it's a cash grab and just like, we're going to make so much money, like it's a different mindset for them. We saw that this year on the route. The towns that looked at how do we make this a great experience for the riders, that killed it. Marble Rock, Iowa, which is this hidden gem, one of the smallest towns on map. It was a meeting town. They were amazing. People talked about Marble Rock because of the experience that they gave to those riders, and the stories on Facebook afterwards of these riders that visited after the ride was done, or told someone, or a brother or sister, and then the brother and sister went back to those towns. But yeah, RAGBRAI does not exist without community. We want to tell that community story. So, Red Red's that platform for us to do that. But man, there's so many amazing communities. I'm a small town guy, and I love small towns, and I love rolling through these small towns because there's so much history there. And all the locals, they come out and they tell the story of their town. And before you know it, you're talking to the same guy for over an hour, and you're learning so much. But without community, RAGBRAI does not exist.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Does anybody else want to jump in on that? Otherwise, I can go around my clockwise order here.
Gage, if I can, the second you asked that question, the first thing that jumped in my head is the mountain biking community. I know this is a subset of the overall bicyclists
Sure.
that Matt was just talking about, but they have embraced this from the day that we opened. There's a lot of great mountain biking organizations here in Linn County, and they've been down there volunteering all the time. And we have one trail that's a downhill flow trail only for bicycles. And they just use this, and it's almost like it's a badge of honor for them. They go down so fast. Like I've seen my coworkers go down this, and it looks like they're not moving at all, but it's kind of terrifying for people who aren't experienced bicyclists. But the mountain bikers, they go down it, and if they don't crash at least once and leave at the end of the day a little bit bloody, they didn't have a good day. They love to go down there and do their runs, and so, but they're there, they're doing the upkeep, they're volunteering, they're getting the word out about it. So that's been one of the best communities I've seen that emerge out of this. They were waiting for something like this. And once they had it, they took ownership of it. They want to be part of it. They volunteer. They have nights where they all come out together. And it's just been really great to see.
Definitely. Someone else want to hop on that?
Oh,
Mary?
yeah. It was coming from the East Coast and opening in the Midwest. We were really nervous. We didn't know how we would be received. But coming into this pristine community of Boone, it was so well received. The locals were like, nothing ever comes to Boone, because you've got Ames with Iowa State right next door. And it has such a strong railroad history. Union Pacific still go past, there's probably 40 to 60 trains a day that go through there. And they love the heritage of the railroad, which is a really unusual thing for us to encounter, because normally people are like, get rid of them, like they're noisy. But here they know it's their livelihood. They know it's what put them on the map. So the community really welcomed us, and all the local businesses. It was, that typical thing where the main street has a lot of businesses closed. And we become this very informal visitors tourist information center. We have a lovely little ticket office. So we try to make sure that we represent and can tell people about what to do, where to eat. Our phones team, we have a almost 24/7 phones team that when people call in and they don't know the area, we're able to tell them where to go. And the community really appreciates that. Including, the 16 jobs that we've provided as well. So we've been really welcomed, and it's that complete catchphrase, Iowa nice. Everybody has just been incredible. Yeah. People drop off spaghetti. I mean, one of the mothers of one of the guides made rhubarb pie with a thin, flaky crust. I've never had anything like it before. I mean,
Amazing.
Really. Yeah,
Amazing.
it's very special. We're really, really excited.
Definitely. Maggie or Greg, what about you guys? Maggie, would you like to take this one next?
Yeah. So we're very unique and very lucky in that there's a lot of different groups that make up the Icon community as a whole. Before I came on board, Water Trails was a solely volunteer-based organization helping to move the initiative forward. So we had great groups of people like Greg and his team at Catch, Greater Des Moines Partnership, Community Foundation that really stepped up to help move this thing forward, and still to this day are crucial partners of Icon, dedicating time and resources to help move this thing forward. So we've got that community group. We're one of the largest public-private partnerships in Central Iowa and in the state. So we've got a great group of, our private sector sector, our corporate donors, our business leaders who, as I mentioned previously, see the benefit of this project of attracting and retaining talented workforce here in Central Iowa who are helping to move this project forward. We have 12 participating municipalities that are part of the ICON network right now that are moving some of their projects forward and are helping to support the organization and our operations. There are another group. And then, of course, from the user side of things, you've got your hardcore, passionate recreationalists who can't wait for these opportunities to be in their own backyard. You've got kind of the ones who are interested in dabbling in the activity and can't wait to see, whitewater features in downtown Des Moines. So a lot of interest in this project, which everybody's come together collectively to help make this thing a success. And then kind of a third category, or whatever number category I'm on, which is kind of unique to this project as well, is we're starting to bring the ag community along with us as well. It's no secret that in Iowa, water quality is a controversial topic. And so I'm sure we'll talk later in the panel about kind of what role we play in helping to tackle that challenge, but we're starting to bring some of the commodity groups and some of the upstream, downstream partners together around water trails to help move the needle in that conversation. So there's a lot of different areas that interest and attract different groups that make up the ICON community as a whole and really make it a pretty incredible experience for us and seeing the support that we have surrounding the project.
Definitely. What about you, Greg?
Yeah, was your main question what kind of infrastructure has been developed around a lot of these outdoor recreation things, or?
Yeah, just the impact that community has had on this. I think community is a pretty important part of infrastructure and recreational opportunities. So I'm just kind of wondering the community that you've seen in various projects that Catch Des Moines has been involved in and how essential it's been to those projects.
Well, I mean, you look anywhere around this state and you look at the outdoor trail system, for instance, look at all the little bars or restaurants that have now opened up in these smaller communities that support, they depend on these outdoor recreational opportunities. So many examples in our metro area. I mentioned the soccer complex that's being built up in Grimes, Iowa, 13 soccer fields. Already the infrastructure around that has happened with new restaurants, new hotel, there's a new Hy-Vee. There's a Hy-Vee on every corner, around here. But you look at the Recplex in West Des Moines that I mentioned earlier, that whole corridor where that was built was really a quiet little road long ago. Now Des Moines University, which is our huge osteopathic medical school, is being built out there. You've got two different golf opportunities coming in, Top Golf and another golf deal going in out there. You look at all the infrastructure just from that. So all of these things they boost the economy. Outdoor recreation folks help boost the economy, obviously.
Definitely. And I was going to ask this question for everyone later, but there's also an opportunity to remind people watching, submit questions anytime. We'll get them asked throughout the panel instead of doing a Q&A at the end. I like this method. I think it keeps everyone a little bit more engaged. But I've got a couple questions now in the chat relating to the environment and water quality. And I think, Maggie, I'll start with you on this one, but I think everyone might be able to, or most people might be able to touch on the environment portion of their various projects, organizations. But the question in the chat, what is being done to link outdoor recreation with efforts, to affect environmental issues like water quality, loss of habitat and species, waste and plastic pollution, chemical overuse on farms and yards, and more? Just kind of, how do you balance all of those things in an agricultural state like Iowa and pursuing these projects while also, minimizing harm or having no harm to the environment that you're operating in?
Yeah.
And Maggie, you might be able to talk about that for a while.
Yeah. I'll keep it brief, but give you a little insight. So really our intention with ICON is to use outdoor recreation as a catalyst for, water quality and conservation practices. We walk a very fine line in using that, in that, we have these two divisive groups within our state of who some look at us and say that we might be validating current practices that exist in our state, and others, who are fearful that we might uncover something by drawing more attention to our waterways. So it's a tough conversation to be a part of, but one that, like I said, I think can bring a lot of groups together with the common goal of outdoor recreation, where on the surface level it might seem it's just putting kayaks out on our waterways, but really there's a lot more to it in helping to move the needle on that conversation. So some of the things that we've been able to do because of ICON is, well, first of all, draw attention to that conversation, but then also to leverage some of our resources and some of the funding that we've been able to tap into to help with this conversation. So, we partner with Polk County Conservation to fund a water monitoring program. That's a pilot program for them. They're coming up on finishing up their 2 years looking at, opportunities for real-time monitoring, which has been hard to do thus far, because by the time you test a sample, at that point it's moving water, so it's already out of the area. So it's hard to be able to tap into that data. So they're trying to find correlations between, turbidity and human pathogens to be able to educate users about when it might be a good day for them to get into the water. It's also an opportunity for us to see what currently exists in our water, to be able to identify potentially the source of those contaminants, to be able to implement some practices, on the land practices, to help tackle some of that. Our partners at Great Outdoors Foundation have been working with Polk County to implement some of those practices on Beaver Creek and 4 Mile Creek to help, improve both of those watersheds. So there's a lot of opportunity. We're not the end all be all solution, but we're at least trying to create good stewards of the water through the attraction of outdoor recreation, and helping to leverage, like I said, some of our support and some of our resources to be able to, support some of those practices that are going to make a difference within the state.
Definitely, absolutely. And Matt, I was kind of wondering on the RAGBRAI perspective of that, if how you guys kind of navigate. That's a lot of people moving across the state through towns, garbage, trash, the environmental impact that events that big have. How do you guys kind of address that, and what plans are in place to minimize that environmental impact for having that many Iowans going across state drinking Busch Lights, throwing cans places,
Well, that was one of the things that, we ran into very early on with RAGBRAI, and the pushback was, these towns said RAGBRAI trashes our town. And the answer is, well, it doesn't. If you show up and you have, trash receptacles for these riders, they're gonna find it. Water was an issue in 2 towns this year. Meeting with 2 small towns, right out of the gate, they said, we do not want cyclists to drink our water. And I kind of, was kind of puzzled on, okay, what do we need to do? So we partnered with the National Guard. They brought in 2 of their huge water trucks. Wow. And we helped that town be successful, because the town wanted RAGBRAI, but they were so scared that, with fill-up stations, the cyclists would not like the water, and that's what they were remembered for, is the bad water that was in that town. The recycling side of things, because we're in Iowa and we get 5 cents per can, we recycle our cans. Well, there's a lot of people that come from out of state that have no idea about recycling cans. So like these towns are upset because, cans are getting thrown in the trash. Well, that's on us to tell RAGBRAI Nation, we recycle our cans in Iowa, don't throw them in the trash can, because there's so much money that's in those dumpsters. But every town that we went through on our last tour to say thank you was blown away by how clean their community was after RAGBRAI left. We were in a town where they had a festival the week before, and they were worried about the trash. And head committee member said, I got up at 5 o'clock the next morning. I walked my community because I wanted to make sure no one saw anything left behind. And she started laughing. And she said the only thing she found was stuff from her festival the week before, because everything was picked up so well. And the RAGBRAI riders did not trash the town. They actually made their town better, and they helped recycle, and they helped clean up the park. So yeah, it's not an issue for RAGBRAI. It's making sure that, if you're going to do it right, you just have the receptacles around so people can find them, and then you're good to go.
Definitely. Joe, I think you can obviously add a unique perspective on the environmental impact. Mount Trashmore is named that because of what it used to be, and now it's a recreational opportunity. So I'm kind of wondering, if you could kind of speak to it's kind of the opposite environmental effect from taking.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, exactly. The only reason we have that is because for 50 years, that's where all the garbage in Cedar Rapids and then later all of Linn County was going. And it's part of the reason why we embrace the name. Like, that's one of the things, people either really love it or people hate it. And they want to know, are you going to change that? And we embraced it because we want to remind people, this is what it was. I mean, it's a monument to 50 years of garbage created here in Linn County. But as for the environmental aspect of it, I just say, hey, come visit our other location, the solid waste agency, where the landfill and our resource recovery building is for the recycling options, because the solid waste agency is an environmental management system. So we have a continual system of improvement that we're always trying to work with: organics management, hazardous materials, recycling services, environmental education, greenhouse gas emissions, and water quality. So we're always working towards that. And so we're doing everything we can to ensure more garbage is not going in our current landfill that we use. We have the recycling programs that we currently offer, our composting operation, which is adjacent to Mount Trashmore, keeping that material that could otherwise be going in the landfill. So it's the biggest thing that we do. And so we really use Mount Trashmore as an educational opportunity. If you ever have a chance to go there, you'll see we have interpreted signage throughout there explaining the history of it, the garbage that went in there, the compost operation, explaining why we have Mount Trashmore elevation 948. The top 30 feet of Mount Trashmore is all from the floods of 2008. That is just flood debris that came in that we had to reopen it. So yeah, taking care of the environment, that's what we do as an agency. We're an agency that doesn't receive taxpayer dollars. We're not part of the city of Cedar Rapids. We're not part of Linn County. We're standalone. So garbage pays for everything that we do, but we're constantly trying to put ourselves out of business because we want to make sure that landfilling is the last option. People are reusing, they're recycling, or they're composting, and making sure people are aware of that. And this gives us a great platform to try to continue that education.
Absolutely. And next on my screen here is Mary again. I was wondering if you had anything kind of add. I assume the environmental impact that you guys have with Rail Explorers is pretty minimal, but still, you guys have people coming through, and just kind of wondering how you address, being a part of the environment along the railroad without impacting it in any greater capacity.
Yeah, we've taken sort of our key things from basic hiking manifestos, which is, you take out, you bring in, okay, I can't say this. You bring back what you bring in. So it's like, a two-way policy. And we make real, and also things like even sound pollution, that's not just sort of environmental pollution, there's sound pollution, there's just respect to neighbors. But we make sure that we leave the tracks in much better condition than we found them. And by the very nature of our tour schedule, we're out there a lot more. So we get to clean the tracks before even people who are riding the train see it. So we become, little trash collectors as well. And that's really good. And I think people really respect that. All our guides, we have a guide at the front rail bike and the guide at the lead rail bike, and then our 15 other rail bikes that carry our guests, sort of get broken up about 100 or 200 feet in between. And we are constantly picking up stuff if they've dropped it and things like that. So it has a good way of letting people know that we will be responsible for the condition of the track.
Definitely. And Greg, for you with Catch Des Moines, obviously you guys are involved in tons of different projects and initiatives. Wondering, your organization, when you think about the environment and the impact, how much of a conversation is that for these different outdoor recreational opportunities?
Yeah, well, number one, we pretty much demand 80% of our visitors come by automobile when they visit Des Moines. So we demand that they all drive electric cars. If they don't, they have to park in Cedar Rapids and then take a horse and buggy in. But
we appreciate that over here. Thanks.
just trying to lighten it up a little bit here, folks. It is a big concern, and so many groups that come here, it's at the top of their agenda too. What happens in Des Moines as far as environmental activities and things, and a lot of the both convention and sports groups get involved with things like, different projects when they're here because they want to do some sort of an environmental project when they're here. So we've got a whole list of different things that they can do to help while they're in the community. And it's just an important topic, obviously, today, to coincide with the outdoor living and everything else that we're trying to do in this world.
Absolutely. Thank you all for taking the time to answer that one. I probably have time for a couple more questions here. So one of the things I want to kind of get into is also the funding opportunities and how those may have changed since COVID. Obviously, there's more federal outlets, including ARPA has made an impact in general, and other programs statewide, federal wide, have made an impact. And I'm wondering how much funding has changed over the last couple of years and been a game changer for outdoor recreational opportunities. Maggie, I think I'm going to ask you this one first, just because I would assume that there are probably, I don't know how much ARPA has like been able to impact water trails, but I assume there are other programs then that probably have more recently than in the past, perhaps.
Yeah. So our project in total is about 125 to 150 million is what we're projecting right now. And from the onset, our funding formula, our funding model has always been kind of a third, a third, a third. So a third in private donations through our capital campaign, a third in state and local funding, and a third in federal funding. And, when we went through the pandemic, that third with the private capital campaign really took a pause, and we focused in more on kind of the public side of things. And even more so, in the last 10 months or whatever it's been since some of that ARPA money started to roll out, been seeing a lot of that being funneled our way, which is incredible. Earlier this year, we received 15 million from the state's water infrastructure funding, which was a subset of their ARPA funding. So that's going towards, some of those water quality practices at a couple of our downtown sites to help implement some of those. And then a couple of weeks ago, we also received the $7 million allocation through the Destination Iowa Fund, which was also created through ARPA. So, as I mentioned, we have an opportunity to attract visitors here to this, not only central Iowa, but the state as well, through some of the work that we're doing. So we've definitely had, been super appreciative of some of that money being funneled our way, and obviously has been resonating with folks to help us kind of build this thing up. So that's been something that has definitely changed over the last couple of years as a result of COVID. Another opportunity that we've really seen, again, this is more on our partnership side with the Great Outdoors Foundation, who is kind of our fundraising arm for the project. We've seen a lot of change in kind of that private sector funding through ESG investment. So that's environmental social governance investment from corporations. So they have an opportunity to raise their ESG score by contributing to, different causes within their community, whether it be social responsibility or environment. And so, potential investors or stakeholders for some of those corporations look at that ESG score to see not only the profitability of the corporation or the business, but also to see how they're giving back to their local community. So because of some of the conservation practices that we wrap up into the project through, whether it be treatment wetlands or other things that we do as part of the project, we've seen some of our private sector donors come through by way of that that ESG investment. So in particular, Athene, who's based out of West Des Moines, they contributed $1 million to go towards treatment wetlands at one of our sites. It's going to be the first of its kind. It's going to be stormwater treatment wetlands at one of our downtown projects. So we've really seen some of our private sector donors stepping up in that regard and paying more attention to more of that conservation side of things, and donating that way towards the project. So that's been something that's really been a game changer and kind of been up and coming over the last probably 12 to 18 months or so.
Definitely. Does anyone else want to touch upon like more recent funding opportunities, or what funding opportunities were like in the past on projects that really helped out some of the recreation initiatives that each of you have been a part of? Otherwise, I can move on to the next one. I kind of felt like that was probably more in tune with Maggie's experience. But if anyone else does want to touch upon that, feel free. Going once, going twice. All right, we'll move on to the next one. Thank you for answering that one, Maggie. Another important, this might be my last question, because I think each of you will be able to speak to this. We only have a few minutes left. Another important aspect, I'm sure, of a lot of these projects is the partnerships made and kind of the regionalization of your areas to an extent. Could each of you kind of talk about the importance of establishing a strong regional network, or for you, Matt, a strong statewide network that you most likely need to achieve not only funding to continue projects and initiatives and organizations, but also the recognition needed to keep these projects going, and whether it be for the environmental reasons or just funding in general, or just a recognition for people to come take advantage of these opportunities.
Sure, I can go first. Partnerships are a big deal, and it's the entire state of Iowa playing a role. So when you look at the roads that we're on, it's the DOT. So making sure that they feel that they're a part of something, and it's not just me dumping the route in their lap and say, okay, figure it out, but it's actually working with them. So they're helping me be on the right roads from a safety issue. The state patrol, from a partnership standpoint, it's, making sure that they feel good about being at every turn, at every intersection, directing riders across the state. It's building partnerships with every town. It's the understanding that we're going to show up for them and they're going to show up for us, and together we're going to showcase Iowa. So, everything we do from a RAGBRAI standpoint today affects tomorrow, affects 6 months, affects a year down the road, because there will be times that, 5 years down the road, we're going to go back to some of these communities that we passed through 5 years ago. And if we did a good job, we created a great partnership with them, they want us back. If we burn those bridges, they're going to say, no, we'll pass. And that just puts us in a bad spot. So for me being the new director, I want to learn from every town that's had RAGBRAI, what you like, what don't you like. I want to learn from the towns that don't want RAGBRAI and find out why, and try to fix that bridge and grow it stronger, with the end goal that the day that I retire, I can look back and go, man, every town, every city in Iowa, they want RAGBRAI because of the partnerships that we've grown over the years.
Absolutely. Greg, I was kind of wondering for you, obviously Catch Des Moines is a regional organization. And so, how does that network and the partnerships established over the years, how important is that to pursuing these outdoor opportunities that obviously every community, especially those regional like trail networks or even water trails that Maggie can speak to, how important is that for your organization?
It's very important to us. And, in our industry, let me just say, if you go to Kansas City and you stay in Overland Park or you stay in Liberty, you tell people, I went to Kansas City for the weekend. And it's no different than going to Cedar Rapids or Waterloo or Des Moines, and you're staying in Altoona or West Des Moines or Urbandale or wherever. You still visited, Des Moines. And working together with these communities, and that's what we do. We represent 15 municipalities around the metro area. So it doesn't matter to us. If you have a meeting for 25 people, we ask you, where would you like to meet? And you might say, well, we'd rather be out by Prairie Meadows and Adventureland, or we'd like to be out by the shopping centers in West Des Moines, or whatever. That's what we'll suggest. The regional recreational opportunities and in the communities around here, and I think pretty much throughout the state, all work so closely together because they recognize the importance of Des Moines walking, biking, hiking trails connecting to Urbandales and West Des Moines and Ankeny's and everybody else, that eventually, roll up to the High Trestle Bridge and all these other fantastic attractions around the state. So very, very important. In today's world of politics, and I'm sure nobody is sick of the freaking political ads that we're seeing on TV and elsewhere. Drop it, get along, we're all in this together. So there's my political statement. And I am running for,
dropping the breaking news in the recreational panel at Iowa Ideas. Edward's running for something. Joe, I wanted to ask you that question next, and just kind of wondering the importance of the various communities that you have to balance just in your organization, but also for Mount Trashmore. You work with all these communities to handle solid waste, and how did that kind of impact the creation of the trail?
Yeah, so with this, our biggest thing is like you step right off our agency boundaries, you're right in the city of Cedar Rapids, and the city has all these plans that they're doing down there. Transformation in the Czech Village area where Mount Trashmore is located since the floods of '08 is just, nothing short of amazing. So many homes were lost and turning into the green space, and now improving the trails and the levee system that's going there. So with that in mind, we know that we have to partner with the city, we're partnering with the county, just making sure that we're doing everything that can make this a spot where people want to come and visit. So that's been great. And then some of the local community groups that we've developed partnerships with, like Czech Nubo Main Street District, they came to us, they had this idea, hey, we want to do a Mount Trashmore challenge. Did you know that it would take going up and down Mount Trashmore 140 times? That'd be the equivalent of scaling Mount Everest. So for the last 2 years, we've had people, they do that. They developed an app for it. They can track how many times they get it done. It's quite the accomplishment. That's people walking it or biking it. It's a lot of time. So that, they're reaching out to us, working with our partners in Nubo and Czech Village. That's been the biggest thing locally. But then even nationwide now, we're kind of unique with what we've done with it. So we have landfills from across the country. They hear about this, they call, they want to come out and check it out, like seeing what you can do, because there's closed landfills all over the United States. How can you turn it into a community asset? We always talk about going from trash to treasure with what we've done. So we'll have people come in a couple times a year, from Missouri, from Oklahoma, places like that, coming out and seeing this is how you do it. And so those nationwide partnerships, that's something that then we can get ideas from them, seeing what they're doing in their communities. So it's been really great.
Definitely. And going through Mary and Maggie here before we're at the end of the session. So Mary, for you, coming into Iowa now, having to kind of establish this new network, what has that kind of been like, balancing the communities, and not only Boone, but the surrounding communities as well have interest in this. Wondering how important those partnerships have been to establish this project.
I think everyone we've met realizes that, we're just offering another piece of the puzzle to the outdoor experience. So they've been very welcoming, and we're just learning. It's great to be on this panel and meet you all, because, we're learning about who's out there, who's around, and the more that we can, obviously I'm coming at it from a tourism point of view, the more that we can add something that's compelling, the more that it's more likely that people are going to want to spend an extra night or an extra 2 nights, and they're going to be asking, where else can we go? So that's why it's important that, the government really step up its funding for ecotourism and outdoor recreation, because it's not going to just be one of us that are going to be able to pull in all the numbers. It's going to be that Iowa is known that it has this solid plan, and, and we will benefit all our communities and regional communities by being able to recommend other things to do. I can't wait to scale Mount Trashmore. I don't know if I can, but I really would love to. And hearing it, I'd love to get out on the waterways. We go over the Des Moines River, and it's spectacular. So I just think that it's just so important that, we prove to the state that this has a lasting economic sustainability to what we're doing. We're not just doing this, as little one-off events. These are long-term goals that you're all involved with that need funding, and we'll prove it. And we do continually prove it, I think, by the economic impact that we have. And that's, I think, states need to see that. And I think individually, when you hear the stories that we're all telling, it's compelling, from the small town that has had ragbri to the community of Boone, which has a new attraction for the first time in like 60 years. So definitely. I just can't wait to all be together and to be able to sell each other's experiences, and, get people confident that outdoor recreation can be for them at any level.
Absolutely. And now I feel like a political debate moderator for Maggie here. Also for you to answer a question, but you only have like 60 seconds. That's why I feel like a political debate moderator. Regionalization is obviously like super important to the Water Trail project. As you're literally going through all these different communities and have to have partnerships. So I'm hoping you can kind of speak to the importance of the regionalization of a project like that.
Yeah, it's been huge, especially in the last year when we moved over into our new 501c3. We started to really incorporate more of the public sector into the representation in our organization. So we have a board that's made up of about 25 individuals, very large board, but it's both public and private representation. And so that partnership between those two sectors has been huge. You know, as I mentioned, when we moved into ICON, we have about 12 municipalities that are represented on our board. They're the ones that are moving forward with their project, creating that regional water trail system for us. And so ICON as a regional initiative would not be a thing without bringing those partners on board. So whether it's at the city level, the county level, state level, I mean, those are crucial for moving it forward and have really been why we've seen the success that we have.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for bringing us home there, Maggie. I'll keep my conclusions really short, but first of all, thank you to all the panelists for taking part of this and taking time out of your day and weeks to prep for this, of course. And thank you everyone for watching and staying a few minutes late. I know, you know, you want to get on to, I think there's one more round of sessions and onto your weekend. But again, thank you so much everyone for taking part on Iowa Ideas, and have a great weekend coming up.